everybody. Welcome into another episode of the WTH podcast. We are back after a couple of weeks away. Forgive us for any technical issues. We're not back in studio despite the promises made in the earlier Facebook post. Sometimes life happens and you don't get to be where you had planned on being, and that's just how we are right now, and it's all good. So we're at home, each of us in our own homes, and we're going to talk about what we were doing the last couple of weeks, why there weren't any shows. The first week we were planning on being off just because of travel stuff. That was predetermined, but last week was a bit of a surprise to all of us. Oopsie. But anyway, Jason, how have you been for the past couple weeks, buddy? What you been up to?
Same old. I did just go to a bachelor party this weekend for Maz. You guys remember Maz?
Yeah.
Yeah. So went to a bachelor party for him up in Tahoe, and this is the first time I've hung out with people that I don't know, and are not part of my circle at all since COVID. Anyhow, yeah. So it was a lot. It was fun. Definitely like guys that are in their 30s, going to, going to Tahoe. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We made steaks and hamburgers on Friday night. On Saturday, do you remember Arjan, Maz's cousin? He did stand up for a little bit, like in 2011, 2012. People call him Ron also. Yeah, multimillionaire now.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, like bought a bunch of crypto at the right time, and he has a place in Tahoe, has a place in El Dorado Hills. Like he's.
I hope he sold it.
Oh yeah, no, he diversified. Like there's
yeah.
this week. I mean, he knew what's going on, and he diversified. I'm sure at the right time. And I also think he bought it so early that it doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, if you bought your Bitcoin at $12, the fact that it's at 28,000 is not really that big a deal for you.
Yeah,
if you bought it at 56,000, it's kind of a bummer right now.
Yeah, yeah, I know, right? But it was a lot of fun. He had like this special. He's so baller. He had this thing where it was like a timeshare for boats. So he doesn't have to own a boat or anything like that, but he can go to slips across America, and there's usually a boat there that he can use. That's some kind of rich guy shit.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I had no idea it was a thing.
Well,
yeah, my bosses are a member of a private plane thing like that.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. Nuts. So that's what I've been doing. I mean, it was nice. The going on that trip was good for my mental stability, I think, also, because I've been feeling like, I don't want to say like less of a man, but
wow.
No, but I feel like not doing improv anymore makes, like, I definitely feel like a loss in who I am and my identity. Like I feel like a huge hole in my identity is 15, 16 years of my life, and just to go to not doing anything. I mean, just doing this show, but not doing improv, not doing any stuff on stage at all. Right. So, I mean, I had a conversation with Chris just last week that I feel like I don't have anything interesting that, like, I'm not interesting anymore. Like I felt like the thing I had to talk about that I could talk about with people is improv, or like, when somebody says, "What are you doing?" I go, "Oh, what do you do?" It was always a good conversation starter and piece, and part of just who I was, So it's almost like having to learn how to do comedy sober.
Fair enough, yeah.
In a way, So, but I found that I could still do it, and I was still funny, and that I am still able to connect with people that aren't people that I've connected with before, which is neat.
Right. I mean, you do have the grilling too, the smoking and grilling, and
Yeah, but that doesn't. I haven't done that for a while. Like,
well, who's that on?
uh, that's
Maybe
me,
maybe you
definitely
need
for
to
sure.
break out that smoker.
I guess I don't know, man. Actually, Alex and I are actually going to be working on. I have an idea for those grants that they're giving out right now. It's City of Sacramento,
Mm-hmm.
the federal grants, the $10,000. I
Right.
have an idea for a project, and Alex is going to help me write the grant for it and
Nice.
put it together. So that is something to see. That's because I need to move to something else. That was my agreement after listening to new Kendrick Lamar CD, because I've been listening to that. I've listened to that like 8 times since Friday, and it was also cathartic and needing to listen to it. Like, there's a lot of people that have different views and opinions of it and stuff like that. Um, but I think after listening to it, there was a certain amount of hope, gratefulness. Not that the album is about gratefulness or hope, but it's about I was able to connect with somebody I was able to connect with Kendrick Lamar on a level that I don't think it has nothing to do with color. It has to do with like mental issue, depression, things of that nature, dealing with life in that type of sense, family issues. Like, it was dope. So anyhow, it was what I needed to hear on my drive up to Tahoe. In tears as I'm driving up.
Driving up to Tahoe, crying, not feeling like a man. Well, I'm glad you've glad you've found a focus with that. Kareem, what about you? What have you been up to the past couple weeks?
Oh, just for exhibition stuff, pretty much.
At the Brick
Uh,
House, yeah.
at the Brick House, yeah. So I did my art talk on Saturday. Um, One of the things I realized in preparing for the talk was you can go around the world in Sacramento if you're willing to talk to somebody that doesn't look like you.
Okay.
Uh, so where I'm from, there was only black people and white people. We got
Right.
Mexicans later, uh, but being out here, you get you get introduced to so many different people, or you have an opportunity to be introduced to so many different people.
Right.
Uh, so I talked about how working at the Department of Senior Adult Services, I was able to meet uh, people from different countries because we had uh, pretty much people from everywhere that worked in the building. Uh, so I went back to my 8 different Asian types of Asian people joke, but there literally are 8 different types of Asian people in Sacramento, uh,
At least.
at least. And the other thing is that we don't count Indian people as Asian people, but they're South Asian. And then the diversity within them, which is the Fijian Indians that I met that I would have never known about, except for I kept popping into them, and I asked one of the guys I was doing a loan signing for about it, and he was like, "Oh, they did the same thing to us that they did to you guys. Uh, the British colonized Fiji, and they brought the Indian people over to work the sugarcane plantation. Uh, and then my my quote unquote baby mama, who's a uh, Polish Latina, whose parents actually survived the Holocaust and were in the Warsaw Ghetto, and they went to Uruguay after they left Poland, after they were brought out of Europe, uh, and so those kind of things. And one of my massage clients was one of the last people to get on the plane out of Vietnam. She's like the on the last helicopter out of Saigon. Um, the So my Panamanian mom at this point, just all of the different people that are here, that if you take the time to talk to people, get to know them, find out about their culture, instead of And just by asking from a sincere place of I want to know or interest, uh, do you find out how much alike we are? And then, like I said, you get to kind of travel around the world and in Sacramento.
Interesting talk. So, last 2 weeks, what did I do? I had COVID.
Sounds exciting and relaxing.
There's nothing relaxing about COVID. So now I got COVID in Las Vegas from my wife, who got COVID in Las Vegas. I want going to go into how, because that's her business and I ain't spreading her business around. But I did not get COVID from a stranger. I got it from my wife. I am vaccinated, double boosted, and I have the pneumonia shot. So I was not, excuse me, I was not in any way worried like about any immediate health impacts. Of course, there's long COVID and all that other stuff that I'm, mildly concerned with, but not over the top concerned with. But basically, I tested positive for 9 straight days on the in-home tests. So it's the quarantine now is 5 days from first symptom, I believe. But 10 days is safer. And after talking to the doctors, because the kids were at grandma's house in Redding, it was supposed to be a 4-day drop off. It ended up being 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, I did not see the kids, which sucked. But yeah, that's why we ended up not doing the shows, because the first, like I said, the first one was we had planned not to do the show, but then we still felt like crap. I mean, I've been sicker with other flus. I've had different things. Like this was mostly just a sinus thing, and then the other thing was fatigue, and my back hurt. My lower back hurt, and it just sucked. It absolutely sucked. Do not recommend COVID to anybody. Don't get it. If you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get COVID, it'll be fine. No, it won't be. It's going to suck. So don't do it. And this is for somebody who I could not be more protected from COVID. There is literally no way possible for me to be more protected from COVID at all. And it still sucked. And it was still, 9 days of testing positive and 10 days of feeling like crap. And now I've got a bit of a chest cold, which I was talking to somebody else who, one of my employees, she also got COVID. She got it in Tahoe. And she was messaging me, and one of her friends had the same thing I had. They got COVID, they got past it, and then they ended up getting a chest cold. They ended up needing an inhaler. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully I don't need an inhaler. If I do, it'll be short term. But it's one of those things. It's like, I do not recommend getting COVID. Now, this article came out just a few days ago. If the United States had the same COVID death rate as Australia, about 900,000 lives would have been saved. We just passed the million death of Americans. So,
well, I didn't die.
Right. Trump didn't die either. So Australia offers perhaps the sharpest comparisons with the American experience. Both countries are English-speaking democracies with similar demographic profiles. In Australia and the U.S., the median age is 38. Roughly 86% of Australians live in urban areas, compared with 83% of Americans. Yet Australia's COVID death rate sits as 1/10 of America's, putting the nation of 25 million people with about 7,500 deaths near the top of the global rankings in protection of life. Now, Australia's location in the distant Pacific is often cited as the cause for its relative COVID success. That, however, does not fully explain the difference in outcomes between the two countries, since Australia has long been, like the United States, highly connected to the world through trade, tourism, and immigration. In 2019, 9.5 million international tourists came to Australia. So, what went right in Australia and wrong in the US? It looks obvious. Australia restricted travel and personal interaction until vaccinations were widely available, then maximized vaccine uptake, prioritizing people who were most vulnerable before gradually opening up the country again. From one outbreak to another, there were also some mistakes, and with Omicron and eased restrictions, deaths have increased. But Australia's COVID playbook produced results because of something more easily felt than analyzed at a news conference. Dozens of interviews, along with survey data and scientific studies from around the world, point to a life-saving trait that Australians displayed from the top of government to the hospital floor that Americans have shown they lack, and that is trust in science and institutions, but especially in one another.
It's funny too, is their playbook was our playbook prior to Trump.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And hey, guess what? It does work, but yeah, it was, they jumped on it very early. They did the isolation, they did the shutdowns, and not like we did shutdowns. We didn't do shutdowns like other
No,
countries did shutdowns.
no.
This idea that we were shut down and everything was in lockdown is bullshit. That's not what happened. You could go out anytime you wanted.
I never stopped working.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who didn't. The
Yeah.
grocery stores were always open. You could go to Target anytime you wanted and go shopping.
And
Some place,
all the
I
construction companies were still working.
I
yeah,
couldn't stop my job. I mean, I quit my job, but that was almost a year after, almost the year anniversary of COVID. And I was like, we can't do this another year with me working from home and my wife working from home.
right.
Like, fuck that.
Yeah, it's crazy. When Australians were asked why they accepted the country's many lockdowns, its once closed international and state borders, its quarantine rules, and then its vaccination mandates for certain professions or restaurants and large events, they tend to voice a version of the same response. It's not just about me, which is the exact opposite of all of the my body, my choice people, who, by the way, now are all down for banning reproductive choice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The
So-
It's funny because I'll go ahead. Sorry.
no, go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, you first.
I just said I tried to tell y'all. Nobody wanted to listen to me. And my boss at work still is not listening, even though all the shit that I've told him for the last 4 or 5 months is happening in the way that I told him it was coming. And that's part of the problem, is that for some reason white people don't listen to anybody besides white people.
Well, and even in this case, white people didn't listen to white people.
Yeah. It's the weirdest shit. It's like, well, just because, it could be that way, but I'm not sure. And I'm like, do you not know your own history of yourselves and the shit that you're capable of?
The thing that I've noticed is that I'm not there. There was an intersection where the anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers intersected. Like the far left, extreme left, hippy dippy, all natural people, and then the crazy QAnons. I mean, not so much the QAnons sometimes, not just Republicans, I guess. But there was a point where they met, right, for a while. But I think that this is an issue where they're definitely separate, like 100%, because the friends that I do still have some contact with that are in that ultra left area are definitely still about the the body autonomy stuff and pro-choice ideas. So they had but there's still, those other ones.
But they're the same group of people, though. They're the same group of don't tell me what to do people.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
this,
absolutely.
it's the same.
I know better. The Jenny McCarthy's of
Yeah,
the world.
yeah. And even though they're left and right, they're the same fucking people.
I did my own research, people.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Didn't
You-
pass, barely pass high school science or junior high science, but then they're smarter than everybody else.
Or like somebody in my family who failed nursing school, like couldn't get into nursing, like decided to cancel it, spent lots of money on it, then didn't make it. Yet they know about vaccines more so than my wife. So much so that they would tell my wife they would pray for her when citing science.
And then the whole fucking handmaid sale shit. I was listening to, and I told you guys about it at the time, this podcast called this Land, and they talked about how they were trying to take native children. And part of what they were doing was because there weren't enough white children being born, and then they wanted to raise the native children like they're good white Christian.
Oh yeah.
And this is something that is been going through the courts in Texas. Or they found a judge in Texas that would side with them, and it's something that's been going on. And the whole deal is they don't want older children; they want babies.
Right.
They don't want 2-year-olds. They don't want 3-year-olds, because one of the couples had fostered like a 3-year-old and gave him back because it was too much work for them. Seriously.
Well, 3-year-olds are a lot of work.
Right. But how shitty, it's how shitty of a person that you have to be to give back a 2 or 3-year-old, because you can't, quote unquote, mold them.
I thought that was the good thing about having kids like that.
Yeah. It's crazy, dude.
It's like,
Hold on, Jason. The 3-year-olds don't listen. What?
No.
What?
Like you have 5-year-olds listen. I mean, get the fuck out of here. I'm sure I'll be saying 15-year-olds don't listen. I'm sure I'll be saying 25-year-olds don't listen. You know why? Because I'm their parent.
Oh, dude, my boss's 3-year-old shit on himself today. Wiped it on his floor and ran outside and hid behind a plant.
Oh boy! Yikes!
Oh man!
Yikes!
But like I said, it's crazy. These people think they're better human beings than the rest of us. But you're such a shitty person that you gave back a 3-year-old.
Oh, and they're Christians though too, bro. Like
Yeah,
that's
good,
the part.
yeah.
That's like. I just don't get it, man. Like,
It was too much work. So they're gonna make white women, have babies so that they can adopt them, and they actually put the shit in the language.
Yeah, what was it? The domestic supply of
The
babies
domestic supply of babies.
was the verbiage used.
The verse.
Like Jesus Christ!
And the
What the fuck
crazy
is
thing,
wrong with you?
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, this is the shit that they were saying in the podcast when I was listening to it.
Right, and you're like, well, this seems far fetched.
Yeah. And then
And then here it is.
yeah.
Fuck, man. Anyway, on to less pleasant things. There was a mass shooting in Buffalo, New York. 18-year-old white kid, allegedly.
Not kid. These are
White
Adult.
18-year-old, that's true. 18-year-old adult allegedly drove 2 hours from his little dink town into a black neighborhood in Buffalo and killed 10 people.
can you say allegedly when you live Twitch or when you live stream it? Do you say allegedly when you do that?
Well, you can say allegedly because just legally you can. You can say allegedly. Here's the thing. He live streamed it. There's not really any question that
Multiple platforms.
Sure, just like this show. Although we're not going to murder anybody tonight.
And we don't have that type of viewership.
Only
Yeah.
with our words. We'll murder you with our words. Non-lethal murder is how we're going to go. But we didn't have to go very far or very long until the next one, because there was a shooting at a church in Southern California. And Fox News is there to talk about why this is happening.
You know, what must go through the minds of these people, like the guy yesterday who's accused of shooting up that supermarket. He's 18 years old. His whole life was in front of him, and now his life essentially is over because of what he decided to do. Do they not think about this before they open fire? Are they so wrapped up in themselves, as you say, so psychopathic that nothing else matters to them?
You'd have to have a conscience to feel that way. And so, no, there's not. It's a blind obsession. It lacks empathy. Thus, it makes them so incredibly dangerous.
I wonder, you know, it seems like these things have gotten so much worse since video games became so realistic and so violent. Have you...
All right, there it is. It seems like these have gotten worse since video games have gotten realistic and violent. Jason, you're the lead video game player on the show. About when did video games become really realistic and violent? Because in my experience, you'd put that early 2000s.
I would have to say that they've been saying this shit since 1993, and like there was fucking Mortal Kombat out on a fucking arcade game.
Sure.
So, and that did not look realistic. And they can say that it's happened more realistic. Like, get the fuck out of here. When the Columbine incident happened, like
99.
That was maybe about 4 years after the real popularity of Doom. Which was a first-person, like probably one of the first-person shooters, like where you're just looking straight in front of you and just shooting and killing things. And that was considered not necessarily realistic, but like, wow. 98, Counter-Strike came out, and Half-Life, and games started to look more realistic at that point. But here's the thing that's crazy about that, is that it's just like internet usage. When you first had the very first type of internet ability, you had to put your phone on a thing and press a tape to start and like connect to the internet that way. And then it was a modem inside your computer and it squealed. And then there was different levels of that dial-up that you could get. And then there was a cable that you could get. Then there was like T1 lines at universities and other like. The thing is each time you went up, if you went backwards, it was horrible and it did not look real. It was a difficult, troublesome experience. You know, there's nothing like going from a T1 down to 56K. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, games look very realistic now, sure. But you could say the same thing that 20 years ago that they look realistic also, because it's all just a matter of like what's realistic at that point and what looked fake before that. You know what I mean? And they've been saying this shit since the beginning. This is the same argument they've been using since the beginning. And it's been proven wrong. In fact, they've said, and it's been proven, that children that have video game time actually see increased IQs by like 12 to 13 points sometimes by playing video games. It doesn't take away brain cells. It actually helps your brain develop. Anyhow, so fuck that fuck. He can go suck a fucking asshole.
Well,
Go fuck yourself!
Well, let's talk about what the shooters actually said inspired him.
Let's get to that in just a second, because going back to the point about this has gotten more and more prevalent since breaking news, Madison Cawthorn has been primaried. He just conceded. Apparently the lingerie put him over the top. Anyway, in 2004, the ban on the sale of assault rifles in the United States, which went into effect, I believe, in 1993, was allowed to expire in 2004. Since 2004, video games have gotten more and more realistic. it's also easier and easier for anybody to go and get these weapons to carry these things out. So to blame one on one thing while ignoring the other is kind of a bullshit thing. But to Kareem's point now, let's look at what this guy said, because he had a 180 page manifesto.
Yes.
Like, that's longer than a movie. Movie's 120 pages.
And guess what he didn't say in the manifesto that caused him to do it?
Video games?
Not a word about a video game.
Not Assassin's Creed?
Not Assassin's Creed.
Not Halo.
Not Halo.
Not
Not-
Call of Duty.
Not Call of Duty.
Grand Theft Auto?
Not Grand Theft Auto.
Red Dead Redemption.
Not Red Dead Redemption. Only thing he took away from the video game was the site.
Twitch.
That's it.
Oh yeah, that Twitch.
Yeah, that he put the camera on the helmet to live stream. But he did mention replacement therapy, or the replacement theory that Tucker Carlson, what's her name? That's the representative up there, Elise Stefanik.
Yes, the third ranking Republican in the House. The woman who represents the district that I used to live in and that Jason's in-laws do live in.
Yeah.
She's their congresswoman.
Yeah. So he did mention that theory that they espouse.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I wanted to make sure that we didn't describe him as a child is because they never describe black children as children.
No. You get a 14. You have a 14-year-old black kid who is killed by cops. They talk about how big he was and how big he looked, and he looked like a full-grown man.
Yes. So this guy drove. You said 2 hours. I think it was 3.5 hours. Skipped over 2 towns, 2 major cities that had smaller black populations, and went specifically to Buffalo because it had the largest black population, and he went to the black side of town.
Right.
And had 2 other places lined up to do a shooting at. So he was not mentally ill. He knew exactly what the fuck he was doing.
Mm-hmm. He had a mission.
Yes, he had a mission. Matter of fact, he had already been up there to do a drive run, and the security guard that he killed saw him and asked him what was he doing, because he kept going in and out of the store, and he tried to act like he was doing census work.
On the automatic door?
On the automatic door, yeah. So he specifically targeted this community, and there was a white person that he almost shot, and he said, "Oh, sorry," and then he went to shooting black people. So he knew what the fuck he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And to all of these Second Amendment dumbasses, what do you need with Kevlar and body armor?
Right, that's not in the Second Amendment.
That's not in the Second Amendment.
At the very least, that's where we should start. As a civilian, you don't get body armor.
Yeah, because
unless you're a kid and it's in your backpack.
Yeah, because the good guy with the gun actually did shoot him, but he couldn't hurt him, because he had on Kevlar. He had on body armor.
Mm-hmm. Fucking sickening. And the response. Here's Dan Bongino.
I want you to notice how they work, specifically with regards to this just horror up in Buffalo. It's been the weekend, so we've had a chance to kind of distill out fact from conspiracy theories and nonsense. So a young man shot up a supermarket in Buffalo, apparently from this manifesto motivated by a lot of bigotry. The manifesto, you notice, by the way, they won't put the whole thing out there, but portions of it, or alleged to be his manifesto, appear to have come out, and it's really disgusting stuff. Now, all of a sudden, the left, of course, which can't condemn and just stand in unison with the right and say, what's the cause of all this stuff? They can't do that. They have to all of a sudden switch the argument to a political argument rather than letting the nation mourn and figuring out what the damn problem is.
He told you what the fucking problem is.
Right.
He said it. It's in the manifesto.
Well, they're not releasing the whole thing,
Yeah,
the
no,
whole 180 pages. Go.
Go fuck yourself!
He told you exactly what it was. And he made my point again that white people don't only want to listen to white people, and they don't even want to listen to them.
Yeah. There's an account on go on.
I just like how he goes to switching it to like demonizing Democrats thing. Like
That's the game. That's the game.
I know it's the game. It's just so fucking nuts, though. It's just so nuts to me, like the way that I don't. I will say this: like, I think that there's some things that need to have. They scrub the internet, I guess, or they tried to scrub the internet of the video, you know, and I think that some people should be made to watch the video and stare at the video, and see it, because from what I've heard from somebody that saw it, it's the most horrifying thing, and they said that they wish they'd never seen something like that. So I think there's certain white people that need to see it.
Well, I mean, we'll see it at the trial.
So
because he gets a trial.
I told y'all when Sandy Hook happened that was the beginning of the end, because when they did not give a shit about those white kids, they don't give a shit about nobody.
Right.
If that did not change anything, there is nothing that's going to change this country.
The cold-blooded murder of a bunch of kindergarten kids, suburban kindergarten kids.
Yes.
And we couldn't pull together and say, how do we keep this from happening again? Couldn't do it. Could not do it.
Instead, you had entertainment personalities pushing garbage theories that allowed 10% of the population to think and believe that it never happened. Like, that's fucking
That we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of that. Happened in December of 2012. 26 people, 20 of them children between 6 and 7 years old.
Yep.
But you can't come take our guns.
No.
Can't come take our guns, Obama. Now, at the time, Rush Limbaugh was still alive and gleefully referred to Barack Obama as, and I quote, the late Rush Limbaugh, as he called him, African American, because he was mixed race. That was one of the things that he would say gleefully, and it was like, ho ho ho, people can't take a joke.
Yeah.
It's not a joke. That type of shit is about dehumanizing and making people out to be less than you. It's about trying to create this hierarchy and maintain it.
And I think that this is also an area where, like, when you don't put limits on certain types of speech or certain types of warnings on certain type of speech, like the fact that things like Tucker Carlson get away with operating on a news network and then knowingly call themselves pretty much satire, like, that should not be an excuse for that type. That comedy should not be an excuse for that type of information, like distribution. That's not the that's not the place for. I mean, and I don't know, because that's what they do. They make it. They say something that's outlandish, that there's no way it could ever be true, that's a lie, and then they can bring it up as many times as they want, and then just say it's a joke. Well, yeah, no, I mean, what do you think? I mean, come on, the facts have been established on this.
Well,
It's a joke.
the judge that allowed it, that's really what it is. The the judge that allowed him to say that what he says is satire, and that nobody should believe him. That's the person who really needs to be looked at.
But
It's
I mean, they've been
it
doing this for years, though. I mean, Rush Limbaugh's operated under that. His whole thing has been under like he was never a journalist. Rush
no
Limbaugh
Rush.
was never a journalist.
No, not once. He wasn't
So,
presented as such.
but
Yeah.
he was
But
taken at.
Tucker Carlson is. He is on a network called Fox News. The things that are on his show are played back during their news segments, giving them credence as quote unquote news items.
Right.
Jon Stewart highlighted that was how Fox News created this maelstrom of legitimizing these opinions as news. They're like, look, our evening shows are opinion, our daytime shows are news, and there's a difference between the two. But then Jon Stewart, when he was at the Daily Show, went through and showed example after example after example of them playing clips from Hannity and O'Reilly at the time, playing those clips of those interviews on their news segments the next day. And then the following evening, the opinion people would come around saying, look what made news, blah, 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 blah. And they talk about what they had on their show the night before. So it's opinion, but then it's repeated in the news. And then the opinion people can go, aha, look at this news. And it's just, it's an insidious level of bullshit is what it is. But the problem is people are buying it.
Yeah.
It's not that it's getting peddled. The problem is that people are buying it. And there's a picture going around on Twitter today. And I don't know if it's real. I've seen it in a bunch of different places. It's a birthday cake. It says happy 10th birthday, Logan. And then there's a picture of a machine gun on it. Let's go, Brandon. Fuck Joe Biden. Is that really a 10-year-old's birthday cake? The problem is I don't know.
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, I'd be like, no, that's bullshit. Someone made that up. That's not a thing. There's no way that that's a thing. But now I don't know. And I try not to share stuff like that because you don't know. And I don't want to be part of the, oh, look, this got shared around and it's bullshit. But at the same time, there's tons and tons of examples of family photos with everybody in the family down to the 6-year-old all holding guns.
Yeah.
And families yelling fuck Joe Biden, people flying flags in family neighborhoods that say fuck Joe Biden. It's like, come on, man, what the hell? Anyway, I need to breathe.
They're the silent majority. They're the silent majority, though, right?
Let me make something perfectly clear that I was reminded of this weekend by me. Remember the moral majority, Kareem? I know you remember the moral majority.
Yes.
Now, consider this. The moral majority is neither moral nor a majority. And that's a fucking fact. They were never a majority. Never even close to a majority. Nor were they anything close to moral. But they started spinning. And then when the preachers got into the politics is when the shit started to go bad. It started to go sideways.
Yep.
And you had people like fucking Tipper Gore who got pulled into this music bullshit in the 80s. And it's like it was just this it was the political class that was against whatever, but either way. It's like,
and mind you, to go back to the Roe v. Wade thing, the Christian right didn't give a shit about Roe versus Wade. That was a Catholic thing. And to take you back, I'll usually say slavery, everything, you can trace everything back to slavery. But now I'm understanding that you can trace this modern stuff to the Civil Rights Bill.
Yeah.
And once the Civil Rights Bill passed, the Christian right realized that they would have to send their children to school with black kids, and they separated schools. And that's why your tax dollars go to schools from your neighborhood as opposed to the federal dollars. And determined because they started sending their kids to private schools, which were often religious schools.
Right. Either way. Anyway, I want to talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for a moment. If you're unfamiliar with him, he's a Hall of Fame basketball player, one of the greats of all time. He writes a newsletter. You can find it at kareem.substack.com, and you can subscribe to emails to get notified of any new writing. And I was notified of one that I found interesting because he's talking about Ben Shapiro. Who's Ben Shapiro? Well, Ben Shapiro's an asshole. That's all you need to know. Sorry. I'm going to read from, this is from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's latest one, which you can find at kareem.substack.com. He writes, Ben Shapiro is exactly what's wrong with public discourse. Let's start with my title, which is a take on the typical titles on Shapiro's YouTube channel. So the title of this is Ben Shapiro Destroys Ben Shapiro While Trying to Wreck Jon Stewart. So Ben Shapiro's YouTube channel, the capitalization is his. Ben Shapiro destroys transgenderism and pro-abortion arguments. Ben Shapiro destroys Megan Rapinoe and the gender pay gap. Shapiro wrecks Jon Stewart's unhinged anti-white rant. Shapiro wrecks Washington's Post crybully who doxed libs of TikTok, and on and on and on. The aggressive nature of these titles don't suggest someone who's looking to have an open examination of ideas, but someone angrily hunting prey to kill, gut, and cook, and then stand over the gnawed bones, pounding his chest in victory. Ben Shapiro destroys rabbit and then wrecks it into stew. See, Kareem's funny. It's an unintentionally funny carnival sideshow. See Wild Man froth and stamp and scold. Fun for the whole family. Why does it matter? Well, because the Ben Shapiro Show on YouTube has 4.55 million subscribers with well over 1 billion video views, 4.3 million Twitter followers, and 2.3 million Instagram followers. And his editorial outlet, I just can't call it news because it's so editorially slanted. The Daily Wire has 600,000 subscribers. That means Shapiro has reach and influence. If only he used his powers for good, other than the good of his bank account. Shapiro might be worse than the clown car of conservative commentators that include intellectual lightweights like Steven Crowder, Dennis Prager, and Jordan B. Peterson, because his audience is not only as massive as is theirs, but because it includes people who sincerely are looking for answers. Unfortunately, he gives the appearance of rationality without actually being rational. His branding is that he destroys people, quote, with facts and logic, unquote, but it's really more faux and lip service. What makes his slideshow sad is that Shapiro is articulate, educated, and knowledgeable. He's just unwilling or unable to utilize basic logic. His recent attempt to take down Jon Stewart exemplifies his bubbling witch's brew of style over substance. Generally, he begins his opinion pieces with personal attacks and name-calling, ad hominem for logicians keeping score. His intro into the Stewart video is, "Our cultural elite, they hate you, they really, really hate you." He uses a trigger phrase, cultural elite, to prejudice the audience before they even begin. By the way, how are they elite when it's Shapiro, Crowder, and Fox who have the larger audiences? Stewart only has 1.3 million Twitter followers, thereby having greater influence on the culture. Shapiro is making his own movies and intends to challenge Disney in making children's content. Wouldn't cultural elite be defined as a small group of self-appointed arbiters of what's culturally acceptable? That surely makes Shapiro a cultural elite. So Shapiro calling out the cultural elite is like Al Capone shaming you for shoplifting. Many of the episodes I watch begin with some reference to the radical left, even though the position he's attempting to destroy is often held by moderate liberals and is hardly radical. But he instantly machine guns the audience with the word radical over and over until that's the only position. Be afraid, he pretends, warning. The radicals want your jobs, TV shows, and children, and they don't like the way they're eyeing your dog. Editorials use hyperbole to make their points and to be entertaining. That's to be expected, even encouraged, but there are clear boundaries. It's the difference between a ragtime piano player entertaining the patrons of an Old West saloon and the drunken lout rousing them to lynch the accused cattle rustler in the jail. That was hyperbole. Shapiro especially likes to zero in on victims' age as a way of dismissing their points. I'm not sure if this is a blatant marketing ploy to appeal to younger audience, Shapiro's 38, in order to entice them to subscribe, or if he just hates old people. His Stewart video references Stewart as an old man about 3 times in a minute. This isn't the first time he's tried to poison the well with ageist taunts. When Neil Young and Joni Mitchell protested Joe Rogan spreading dangerous misinformation about COVID-19, Shapiro began his video by calling them has-been 60s rockers and later referring to them as aging rockers. True, I'm an aging has-been basketball player, but that has no bearing on the validity of my opinions, which should be judged based upon my evidence for those opinions. I wonder if Shapiro ever needed open heart surgery and everyone told him the best doctor in the world is in her 60s. Would he say, nah, get me someone in their 30s? Anyway, it goes on from there. I encourage you to go out and read it, but it was a breath of fresh air to read someone intelligently writing about how this bullshit rolls through.
That's a good point. I mean, like, he gave me a very good talking point to somebody that talks about the cultural elite. Anytime they bring it up, I can just say, what does that term mean to you? And then directly throw under their face, well, Ben Shapiro has 4.5 million followers and Jon Stewart has 1.3. So who's the one that has more sway, would you say?
Right.
It's so, like, logic. He gave me a lot of logic to use on people that don't use a logic.
That's right. You know, not bad for a has-been basketball player.
Yeah. Old man.
Old man.
My parents picked well.
Right. Very, very, he hit the nail on the head all the way through that. So I encourage everyone to check out kareem.substack.com and read his stuff, because it's, even if you hold a different position than he does, he comes at it from a place of educating people and learning as opposed to blatantly shaming. Although one could argue blatantly shaming Ben Shapiro in that case, but sort of a woodshed moment. All right, we're talking about Tucker Carlson. So Tucker Carlson is upset now because Dan Crenshaw, the congressman from Texas, the former Navy SEAL who lost an eye in Afghanistan, got into a Twitter fight with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I love it when they fight with each other. So here is how Tucker Carlson has sort of changed his tune from 4 years ago when, if you remember correctly, Pete Davidson referenced Dan Crenshaw in a Weekend Update piece.
Dan Crenshaw lost an eye to an IED in Afghanistan on Saturday. Actor Pete Davidson mocked him as one of the, quote, really gross people running for office this year. He added, I'm sorry, I know he lost his eye in war or whatever. Yeah, so that.
Okay, that's Tucker in 2018. Here's Tucker now.
Their position, and they're not hiding it anymore. Useful for you to know. The more I think about it, it takes a lot of gall for Eye Patch McCain to attack moms who are worried about baby formula as, quote, pro-Russia. I mean, that's one of the most outrageous things I think I've ever heard, now that I'm thinking about it. I mean, why not just answer the question? Why the attacks? What does that tell you?
Okay, here's what it tells me. First of all, calling him Eye Patch McCain is kind of a bullshit thing. I think that came out because of the recent Twitter vomit session that Steve Schmidt had about Meghan McCain and also John McCain a little bit, which was interesting. I'm not getting into that here. It was a weird weekend on Twitter, man. But the beef that Crenshaw had with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is a mom, whoopty shit. There's a lot of people who are moms. Some of them are terrible people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it.
You know who was a mom? Hitler's mom. Hitler had a mom.
That's true. He did. Not a good mom. Jeff Dahmer had a mom.
Had a mom. John Wayne Gacy.
Yep. All of them moms. Anyway.
Donald Trump.
It's true. They look alike. But Crenshaw's issue was with Marjorie Taylor Greene not voting to give aid to Ukraine and accusing her of being pro-Russia, which she has come out on multiple occasions with pro-Russia bullshit in the past few months. This isn't like digging deep into the past. This is very recent shit. These are right. These are very legitimate points to make.
Possibly today.
Right?
Yeah.
So, anywho, we now go to a story. Speaking of Fox News, that I sent to the group, and then Kareem sent to the group. So, of course, we're going to talk about it. Talking about shit that they'll talk about on Fox News. Okay. So this idea of critical race theory being taught in schools, making white kids feel bad. Critical race theory is not being taught in schools anywhere other than law school. All they're teaching is history. And if you feel bad as a white person for things that happen in history, that is what's called normal. I'm just saying, you should feel bad that white people did a lot of the shit that they did.
Yes.
When you hear about it, especially for the first time, you should go, wow, that was fucked up.
Yeah.
I feel like shit. That's awful. That's a normal reaction. It's not something that should be shied away from. Anyway, into the white replacement stuff. But somewhere, Jesse Waters, who could be the worst person on Fox News, and I don't say that lightly, he's awful, had a woman on. He could be. Yeah.
More so than TC.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Remember, he's the guy who's flattened his wife's tires. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Raping McGee.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that aside, just the stuff he's done on TV would put him up in the pantheon of terrible people on Fox News. Anyway, there's a concerned mom who went on to talk about her kid. You are going to, I'm going to advise, if you're listening, to put a hand under your chin, because your mouth might fall open a little faster than you're used to when you hear this.
No way.
So your son is, the father's black, you're white, and he'd never mentioned issues with race before, you're saying? What exactly changed?
Right. We didn't have issues before. He's in 8th grade. They introduced this critical program, and now he's having racial issues that was not there before.
What kind of racial issues is he having?
Well, he's seen himself just as a black man. He's seen things that don't go his way as racism, and he's finding safety in numbers now.
So when you're saying he gets a bad grade at school, he blames racism, or a girl rejects him on a date, racism, are those the kind of things you're seeing?
Yes, I ask him to clean the house, racism, yes.
You're kidding, right? Or are you serious?
No, I'm serious. They have totally changed his perspective. They have put him in a box.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to start out by letting everyone know she's wearing a pair of cross earrings. So there's a dangling dead Jesus from each ear.
I'm just concerned for the tires on her car. Well, among other things.
8th grade is a tough time. You're really coming into your own as a smart ass.
Yeah.
I do enjoy the fact that she equates him identifying as a minority with finding strength in numbers.
That's the most. I have a note in my head about that line, because that's the most white Karen shit to ever say. Saying that like he has black friends that scare me now.
Jason, we both know if we heard that story and we started to do an improv scene, that would be the first thing. That would either be the first thing we did or the thing that we built to. Because that is the thing. Everybody on the back line would have been like, oh. Literally everybody. Now, Kareem, you've talked about many times about the single drop of blood theory.
Yes,
This kid is literally half and half. He's mixed race,
he's black.
right?
Um, this is another one of these white women that have a black kid and not realize that she had a black kid. And
He was perfectly normal until he realized he was black, and then everything broke loose.
Well, didn't his mom tell him that he was like Hawaiian or Pacific Islander or something like that?
She said he looks Hawaiian. He's beautiful. He looks Hawaiian.
Oh no.
Yeah,
That's
Yes,
terrible.
that's what she said.
Yeah.
That's terrible. It's written up in the National Review, and apparently I've looked at all the free articles I can. The headline is from happy kid to oppressed victim. Virginia mom reveals how a school anti-racism program ... Oh boy.
No, your son was going to find out he was black at some point. No matter what little cocoon that you put him in, his white friends at some point was going to let him know that he was black. Matter of fact, your parents, her relatives, probably have already let him know that he's black. And she ignored it. That's probably what's been happening, is that people have what he found was that he was not by himself.
Right.
And I bet you he had a lot of experiences that he didn't understand or didn't know, wasn't quite sure what they were. And now he has an answer.
Right. Was it me, or did they hate me because I'm awkward? Like all of those thoughts that happen with every kid that's about that age.
Yeah.
And then be able to go, oh.
Yeah. And now he's like, oh, it was because I was black the whole time. Yeah.
And then aside from that, any 13-year-old that has an excuse to not do their chores, whatever that excuse is, it is used.
It will be triple down on it.
What's that?
They're going to triple down on it.
Yeah, whatever it is, and if they know that it makes you pissed off and it gets your goat, they'll even to the more than that.
Look, and if it's an excuse that allows him to not do it, he's going to use it even more.
Yeah, because it probably just flusters her because she doesn't know what to say.
Yeah, but I can guarantee you that he has been having experiences that he did not know what was behind him, and what this class showed him was what it was behind him.
Yeah, I don't know what goes on with the whole thing. Because I can't see the full article. I'm looking at a different article. I'm trying to look at to see, has the dad come out and said anything about this? Because I'd be curious.
No, because the dad's been telling her, and she hasn't been listening. And he got tired of telling her.
Or was just, who knows? Like, she could have done something, like, who knows what she did, or like who she did it, when she did it, and how it happened. I mean, I know a certain type of person that fetishizes that way. There's certain people who do.
Yeah, but yeah, he been telling the dad's been telling her, and she was like, "No, we're not going to raise him like he's black. He's part mine. You're not acknowledging my portion of him. So we're going to raise him not to see color."
Is his dad? Is she married to the dad? Is he part of the family?
I'm looking to see if there's any mention of that, but I'm not seeing it. She's not suing by herself. She signed on to a lawsuit that has been put forward against the school. So it's not, she didn't come out as the first litigant in the whole thing. She just joined into a lawsuit, which I'm sure is a money grab of some sort, but I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that this is a weird thing to get mad about. Anyway, let's we're running very late. That's what you get when you don't do a show for 2 weeks.
Yeah, my wife is pissed. She is
there-
pissed.
She is. She can't have a living room back.
Yeah.
Look, well, tell her about Jason. Just tell her that Oklahoma has a new quarterback transferring in. You can get excited for the arrival of General Booty.
Oh, Chris, there's a new quarterback being signed in Oklahoma, and his name is what was it?
General Booty.
General Booty. Oh, that makes her excited. She's definitely down to let's watch some football.
Yeah. We're gonna skip a bunch of stuff and get to the end here, just because we are running late. And
that's what he said.
That's what General Booty said. It's time to.
Excuse me very much, please and thank you.
Anywho, that's it. Do I have the small town news? I don't know that I do. I don't. But instead of small town, I'll do this for small town news.
I'll eat your ass.
There we go. Small town news comes to us from my hometown of Barton, Vermont, where Barton residents vote down the sale of electric department to VEC. That's right. Voters elected not to sell Barton Electric to the Vermont Electric Cooperative in an Australian ballot vote. The decision allows Barton Village to continue owning and operating the electric utility that serves more than 2,000 customers in Barton, Brownington, Charleston, Irisburg, and Westmore. By the way, if you live somewhere where your city or town owns your electric company, make sure it stays that way.
Yeah.
It's one of the ways you're not getting fucked.
Yes.
All right. In total, remember this is small town news, 48 people voted yes to Article 15 to sell, and 100 voted no.
That's too fucking close.
148 people rolled out.
But they only they just stopped those 48. Oh man, they must have been shills. How do you not realize that? How do you not realize? How do you think that it's going to be good in any way?
Because you say no. You say things like, "I don't trust the government to do anything right."
Yep.
You pronounce it government.
Oh, and then you just point out how they don't make any profit, and people will be like, "Oh, well, they're not making any profit." Well, shoot, they're definitely not doing something right.
How's the free market? The free market will take care of me.
Yes.
Government should not make profit.
The Barton Village trustees announced their recommendation to sell the utility to VEC back in March. Informal meetings were held prior to the vote on May 10th. For more than 40 years, VPPSA has assisted Barton Electric with its services. So Barton Electric doesn't operate everything on its own, but it's part of what goes on. So if you live in Sacramento, where you have SMUD, which isn't owned by the city, but it is sort of, you have a much different rate structure for your electricity than if you live out, say, in West Sacramento, where you're at the mercy of PG&E, which, if you watched last week tonight with John Oliver, he referred to them as more of a fire company than an electric company. Just saying, it's all.
Fire and explosion company for sure.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
that's
that should be the name. Instead of PG&E, it should be Fire and Explosions.
Unbelievable. Look, the state of California has a huge budget surplus, which, by the way, means you're overtaxing us. But you have enough money now to take away PG&E and take it over. Let's make that fucking happen.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see Gavin Newsom make happen. Tell your wife to make that happen. Could you make that happen?
She might be able to make that happen.
All right. Get on that. I'll let you go so you can get right on that with her. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate you. And thanks for hanging in through the 2 weeks of us being away. Hopefully back in studio next week. We'll see you next time. Later. All right, gentlemen.
All right.
Thanks.